In September, a family reunion was planned to celebrate. Enoch was so happy during these last precious days.
My fondest memory is when we were all together as a family in the evenings. We usually got together and sang songs, and it was really a joyous moment. Those are the memories I like to remember most of the time. Because Enoch Olinga always spoke about being devoted to the faith of Baha'i, and he stresses many times and said you have to be devoted to Baha'i to not only teach the faith but to live the life.
My father, Enoch Olinga, was a man with a very big heart. He was very loving, kind, gentle, and very dedicated to the faith and to the family. And our home was always open to everybody. And in the days when things were really, really bad in Uganda during the Civil War and everybody was scared, Baha'is and non-Baha'is, one of the things people said who were not even Baha'is was being in the home of Enoch Olinga would be the place to be safe. And it's really sad to see that that was the place that tragically took the lives of my father and my family, the person who was really the most peaceful and peace-loving individual.
Mr. Olinga was always willing and ready to help others. In fact, that Sunday, when he was killed with his family, we were here on the temple grounds after the temple service. And we had a meeting with the friends who were coming from up country. And Mr. Olinga was so happy and joyous. He got up, he sang, he danced, and called all of us to join him.
He sacrificed by traveling all over the world. He was always away from his family. While we ourselves, a family is a great tie. I can't leave my children, I can't. His home was open to everybody. He loved everybody. He was a friend of the youth, and he could converse with the people of all races, all classes. He had conversation for all people of classes. And when you are in his presence, you think that I am the only one who is most beloved. And when another comes, I'm going to Mr. Olinga, he is my father. And I remember the day when he was killed. Everybody came crying, oh, my father, my father, my father. One evening, Mr. Oule went to the hand of the cause at Kitante. Hand of the cause told him to stay for supper. He said, no, it isn't safe to travel here at night. So immediately he left. A boy had someone shaking the gate. He looked out in the window. He saw 4 armed people entering in, and he hid. Immediately he heard the shootings. This is how he said. And then he heard shouting. Everybody in the house was shouting. When the shouting stopped, it means that everybody in the house was shot dead. So at dawning, that boy went to the police and reported that everybody in Mr. Olinga's house have been shot dead. And he had a taxi and came up to the hill of the Baha'i temple. He found Mr. Oule, who was by then a counsellor. Mr. Oule drove to Edith's house, Edith Senoga, who is now a counsellor. Then they came to my house, Catherine. When they told me the story, my heart helped me to prevent it, not to receive the news, even if the ears could hear. They told me to dress up, and we went. So we went on the way, weeping, very sorrowful, very disturbed. When I found Mr. Olinga lying on the floor, I thought there's still something we can do to rescue his life. I lifted up his head and I found insects in his mouth. There I lost my mind. There were armed soldiers round about. I started pointing at them, that's still killing innocent people. Don't think that those bullets and guns will bring peace in the world. It is religion which will bring peace in the world, and this is what this man have been teaching.
I had been in that house, and I see it clearly in my mind's eye that his family was taken first and that he was running towards the commotion, and all of his thoughts were for his family, and that his last thoughts were for his family. And I know that if they had been coming for him, and if he had known they were coming for him, he would have opened his arms and gone out and embraced them as brothers. He would have joyfully and gladly given his life.
The message of the passing away of the hand of the cause of God found us while we were in Nairobi. That morning we had a shopping list he had given us, and we had bought about half the amount of things he required, and we decided to take those back to the Baha'i Center and then continue. It was at this time that Mr. Wafula handed me a letter, and I got the letter and put it in the dashboard of the car, and he insisted that I read it. My reaction to that was it that urgent that I should go through it at that moment, or I could do it later? He asked me to read it immediately, and so I did. And in this letter, the news of the death of my father was indicated, and the members of the family, and of course the condolence of the friends in Kenya. My reaction to this was, first there was quite a bit of silence, and Farouk looked at me and didn't know what to do. But then I told Mr. Wafula, I'll just go to town for a drive and come back. He wasn't very pleased with that idea. So Mr. Peter Vuye requested that if I had to go to town, he will accompany me. So we went together, and I didn't have much or anything to do in town. I just wanted some time to drive around and reflect on what steps to take next. So on our return back, I told Farouk we should just pack up and then leave for Uganda, which we did. And that night we spent the night in Kisumu. We met the Kenyan friends, Mr. and Mrs. Obora, and I was able to communicate to Mr. Alinak Javani that night, indicating to him our plans. At the border the next morning, as the case is often done of checking vehicles, we were subjected to this, but we told the custom officials we were not in really good shape to be able to do that, and if they could just excuse us. And it's at that point we saw the headlines of the newspaper about the killing of Mr. Enoch Olinga, and we showed them what had taken place, and they felt so sorry and just waved us to go immediately and continue with the journey. And on arrival to Kampala, and we found all these Baha'is gathered at his home, it's when it actually dawned to us that they were no longer with us.
I went to Lesotho as a pioneer, and it was whilst in Lesotho that I met Peter, my husband. We got married in Lesotho, and we had our first child, Nabil, in the capital city, Maseru. And from Maseru, we sort of home front pioneered to a smaller place called Mafeteng. That's where Peter got a job teaching. And it was while we were in Mafeteng and I was 6 months pregnant with our second son, Buddy. Peter was at school, and he came home, and I wondered, why is he coming home? It's not lunchtime. And yeah, he sat me down and very gently, very lovingly broke the news to me. And it's funny because half an hour later there was a car came from Maseru, which is the capital city, and it was from the Ugandan embassy that obviously got the news, and they knew I was in Mafeking, and it sent the Ugandan High Commissioner himself came to Mafeking to find us. And fortunately, I'd already heard the news through Peter, which was, I think, a blessing.